Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. My name is Bree, and I am joined today by author Jennifer Wilck. I am so excited and so happy you're here, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's start with, how has 2024 started for you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here too. 2024 has started out really well. My daughter got engaged, so we've kind of been like living this high right now. It
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're very excited. And professionally, it's been crazy because I'm working on, I think, 4 books at the same time right now, which I never ever do. But in my attempt to be like accommodating and, of course, no problem, I can do this, I ended up really overcommitting myself. So it's been crazy, but I guess it's a good crazy. So
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, first off, how does it feel like your daughter's engaged? So, like,
Mhm,
I just was driving home from class today because I didn't have to work. I had training today, which was great. Um,
mhm.
and I was like, oh my gosh, like my daughter she's 15 and she turned 16 this year. And I was like, oh my gosh, she'll be like 18 one day, you know? So like that phase of life where like you have like grown babies and
I
now they're
do.
like transitioning into being engaged and like starting families of their own. Like, how does that feel for you?
It is totally crazy. I feel old. Um, but I mean, both of my girls are, out of the house and working and all of that. So, um, we kind of anticipated it, so it didn't come out of the blue. Um, it's a great thing. And it's just very strange because I still think of them as these little things, running around and they're not. And it's weird.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And then 4 projects at once. So how is that happening? How is that working out for you?
um, oy, it is, it's happening because it has to happen. Like I don't have an option and I already committed. So I can't, like, I get very stressed if I can't make a deadline or a promise or whatever. So it has to happen. I don't have an option. Um, but everything, my entire life is on my to do list. And literally all I do is all day long check each thing off and then move on to the next thing. And then the following day I do it. They're all 4 projects are in different stages. So I'm not doing the exact same thing for each one of them,
Okay.
which definitely helps. Still confusing. I still have to remind myself who and what and where. Um, but in general, I think I have it down, but I definitely don't recommend it. And I'm going to try not to do it in the future.
I was gonna ask, like, what are you learning about yourself from this experience of like 4 things at once?
I am learning that I have to learn to say no, and not like no to an entire thing, but I have to learn to really understand myself. And it's that whole, take care of myself piece that I'm not very good at. You're a mom,
Same.
so you
Yeah.
probably understand that, I'm used to taking care of everybody else around me and just, oh, of course, give it to me, no problem, I'll do it, I'll take care of it. And
Before you know
I
it, you have 4 projects at once.
exactly. So I think I need to build myself in a little bit more cushioning and more time to just breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in that space and you have these 4 projects that you're working on, because I can imagine, like, if it was 1, that's kind of like your creative escape. Like, you can escape
Mhm.
life and the craziness going on and escape into this world that you're creating. Is it the same effect when it's 4, or is it a little bit more? I mean, I'm sure that even 1 can be stressful, but is it a different kind of stress with 4? Like, is some of the, I guess, razzle dazzle of like creativity of just 1 taken away because now it's like add on 3 more? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think I understand what you're getting at. Yes, a lot of the creative inspiration and the escapism for me is not there. But when I'm inside of each project, that's okay. That kind of becomes my space. So, like as I work on each piece on its own, I disappear into it and I get in, I get drawn in and I really like what I'm doing. And then when I take a step back, because I'm done with, part one that I'm going to do today and move on to the next, then it's kind of like, okay, don't stop. You got to keep going. How much time do you have before, the end of the day? So that's the first thing. And the second is that I really, because I have so many things that I'm working on at once, I kind of lost the luxury of working on one of them until like I'm ready to stop.
Yeah, yeah.
So like when I'm caught up in a story, like I really just want to go and I want to do this scene and I want to just delve into it and be completely done until like completely go and disappear and come out and be like, okay, this is good. And I don't, because I have so many other things to balance and deadlines that I have to meet. I can't necessarily do that. So I kind of have like, all right, I have to get at least X number of words for this one. And if that happens to be in the middle of inspiration, I may still have to stop, even
Mhm.
though I would like to continue because each day I still have to do these other things. So a little bit of the freedom, obviously, and the creativity is definitely restrained or constrained.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for you to come out on the other side of this.
Me
I can't
too.
wait. Okay, I have a couple of icebreakers. So, the first one, tell me 1 or 2 first things that come to mind of your favorite things.
Goat cheese
Ooh.
and art museums.
Okay, I love that. I love that we have a food and a museum, art museums. Okay. What tell me why. Tell me what you love about it. I'm a history nerd, so elaborate, please.
Okay, I love art museums because they're what fill my creative well. Like when I am stuck and when I am just stressed and overwhelmed. I live in New Jersey, so I live fairly close to New York City, so I can run into the city and go to an art museum. I can go to a local art museum that we have near here, or I'll just like page through, books from art museums. And they're just kind of like, they're pretty and I just like looking at them.
What's a movie or television show that you'll never stop watching?
That changes daily.
That's fine. That's
um,
fine.
I'm currently obsessed with, and it's weird because I'm a romance writer and this is not a romance at all. But I'm currently obsessed with this show called Dark,
Okay.
which is kind of a genre bending mystery thriller sci-fi thing with time travel,
Ooh.
and it's fascinating. And it just, I have to concentrate really hard because it's not my area of expertise. So I really have to follow along. It's in German. So obviously I'm watching with the subtitles so that I know what's going on. Um, and I love it. And it's just each episode is ends on a cliffhanger and I just want to keep watching.
How did you stumble upon this? Because this sounds really good. It sounds like I watched something, there wasn't time travel, and now I'm blanking on what it was called, but there was, a show I watched on Netflix, I think back in January, that there's a body that is discovered in the same
Yes,
alleyway. You know what I'm talking about?
yes,
And, like, 4 different
yes.
detectives all oh my god,
Okay, so
it
it's
was so
called Bodies.
good.
It was amazing. It was called Bodies, and
Bodies.
my husband and I were looking for something to watch, and we saw it. We're like, "Okay, let's try this," and we both really, really liked it. And then, I don't know if it was Netflix or IMDb, but one of those, I know they're totally different things, but one of those 2 sites said, "Well, if you like this, you might like these other similar shows." And so Dark
Okay.
was one of the ones that it recommended.
Okay, okay, okay. Oh my gosh. So there's actual time travel in Dark, though.
Yes.
Okay, okay. I love time travel. Okay.
Oh.
I was like you, like, my husband's like, "Let's watch this show called Bodies," and I was like and he knows, he's like, "I know it's not your romance." He's like, "But you know there's always a romance in something." So, we sat down and I was hooked. I was like, "I don't
Uh-huh.
wanna love this, but I can't not watch this." So
Yes, I totally agree, and I wasn't sure about this one now because Dark has a different feel,
mhm,
um, but it's really, really cool.
okay,
So, if you really enjoyed Bodies, you and your husband might enjoy this one too.
okay, okay. What's your favorite color to wear?
I have 2 colors I love to wear. I love wearing blue.
Mhm.
I just really like that color. Like, if you ask my favorite color is blue. But I also really like, dark reds. I
Oh,
used to wear because it's my husband's favorite color, and, like, back when I was young, I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna wear this color because he likes it."
yeah.
Um, and now I still like wearing it. I find that, when I am interacting with the readers, though, I can't wear red because I will blush talking about different things, and then I'm just like one big red thing. Um
Makes sense. This may be finishing these 4 books, but what is something you're looking forward to this year?
What am I looking forward to? Oh my goodness. Definitely finishing the 4 books, but, yeah, going on taking a vacation after the 4 books.
Yeah, that's always nice. Well, we love learning romance origin stories, so can you share with us how you became a romance reader?
Reader?
Yes.
Yes. I was always a big reader growing up. I was the kid who, went to the library once a week and took out a stack of books bigger than me, and returned them all the following week and just kept that going. And my mom started me on like a whole bunch of books that like she had read when she was little. So they were still kind of, like innocent and, happy and whatever. And I think I started reading romances probably when I was around 12 or 13. And I skipped over the juicy parts because I was like, I probably am not supposed to be reading this. And I was a good girl and, always trying to follow the rules when I was little. And so, but I loved just the romance idea, not didn't even need to be the romance on the page, but just, being swept away. And so I would read my mom's books, I'd read my grandma's books, I'd read, anything I could get a hold of. I read, like the Sweet Valley High books when I was growing up. They were new and they were like, oh, high school girls and stuff. And I just always loved the guaranteed happily ever after.
So let's talk writing. Had you always, like, had a love for writing? How did that come about?
I've always really loved writing. For the longest time when I was growing up, I would write stories, but for whatever reason, I could never get the dialogue to sound right. Like it was always too stilted or too formal or something. And so I kind of shied away from writing stories, and I was more like I went in when I graduated college. I worked for newspapers and magazines, and I was writing, nonfiction, um, and reporting on things. And I just liked writing. Like it was just, I was not a math and science person. I was history and English, and I just wanted to write. And then I was, my kids were really little. And I was watching TV one evening, and I don't even remember the show we were watching, but there was a minor character that came onto the screen for like maybe 30 seconds and went off, and he had such a charisma about him. I was like, "Ooh, who is that?" And like I just got a story in my head. And so I raced off and started writing it down. And I worked on that story for, I don't even know, 6 months to a year, just creating this story around this guy. And I finished it and I was like, oh my gosh, like I actually wrote like from the beginning to the end, and there's conversation in here, and I might be wrong, but it doesn't sound that stilted anymore.
Yeah.
So apparently I got past that. And then I spent a whole lot of time, like years and years and years, submitting to contests and to get the feedback, not so much to win, but when you submit to writing contests, a lot of the judges will critique your work, and that's invaluable. And I joined writers groups, and that's just how I got started.
So you wrote this book, you were submitting to the contest.
Mhm.
The my next question was like the road to becoming published. So how did getting published happen? Because I was looking, and from what I could see, and now correct me if I'm wrong, I do a lot of digging on like fiction database, and sometimes they're not right. But your first title was A Heart of Little Faith in 2011. Is that correct? Was
Yes,
that the
I
same
started
book or
writing.
no?
Yes, that was the
That was
same book.
it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and that took me like, probably 5 or so, 5, 6 years to get published, and it was published by a very, very small press. And then that press went out, and another small press I queried, and they picked it up. And then I moved on to one of the publishers that I'm with now. But while I was, querying that book, I kept writing. So have I haven't stopped writing since then. So I always have a stack of manuscripts that I have written that I'm moving forward to the next step. And it was very exciting the first time. I remember taking the letter that I got from that first publisher and running over to my parents' house and and like reading the letter to them. And it was so funny because all my mom could say over and over was, "My baby wrote a book. My baby wrote a book. My baby wrote a book." I was like, "I did." "Okay, now let's move," I was like, "Okay, so now let's talk about it." And she was just stunned because I really, until I got to that point, I wasn't telling anyone that I was writing because I just wasn't. And I remember telling my husband and my family and everything, and it was so exciting. And honestly, every time a book comes out, it is equally exciting,
Yeah.
just to see, what I've worked on for so long to get to that final stage.
That 5 or 6 years that you worked on it and you were, like, putting it out and entering contests and waiting for the feedback, like, what kept you going? Because I think especially now with romance being so big, and I think so many people are inspired to, like, give it a try for themselves, but I think there's this idea or like, there are those anomalies that write, like, their first book and it gets picked up, but I feel like that doesn't happen as much as we may like to think. But, like, for the aspiring writer that's listening and is in the thick of, like, the 5 or 6 years right now, like, what kept you kind of motivated or inspired to keep going and, like, and keep pushing and submitting?
The thing that kept me going was I had these stories in my head, and all of the inspiration just kept me writing. Like I loved the stories that were in my head that I was writing down. So I wrote that first book, and then I moved on to another one because I had another idea, and I just kept writing. And at the time, it was like the publishing idea was a great idea and was something that I hoped for, but I was having so much fun just disappearing into my stories and was able to completely shut out everything else and keep that inspiration going just because I enjoyed the writing part of it. Like I don't even have that like sometimes I don't even have that inspiration now, but back then because there was nothing expected of me, so I could just sit down and say, "Okay, I have this idea, let me get this down on the page, and let me see if this works, and let me see what happens." And I could just have fun with it. So I think my advice would be that if writing is what you wanna do, and if it's something that you enjoy and have fun, just write for that pure enjoyment. I mean, there's so much going on in the world and so many things right now that don't provide joy, that if writing is what gives you joy, don't worry about the business side of it yet. Just immerse yourself in what is giving you joy while you're writing, because that will help you produce a product that somebody somewhere is going to like eventually.
Yeah.
It's a slow process, but as long as you're enjoying it, it doesn't feel that bad.
So 2011, take me back there as you're entering into the world of romance publishing. Like, what did it feel like to you? Like, what were you seeing? How did it feel?
It was scary. Um, it was really scary because writing is a very solitary process, and I had no idea about anything. I just knew that in my head, I had a story that I wanted to tell, and then once I got it on paper, I had another story that I wanted to tell, and I actually, I joined the New Jersey Romance Writers, and they're a fabulous writing group. They provide workshops and classes and critique groups and contests and feedback and people who love the same thing and who support each other. And it was a great place to be because I didn't know what I didn't know. And romance writers are some of the kindest and most generous people that you will ever find. Like, everybody wants to help each other to succeed and is thankful for the people that helped them. And that's a lovely group to be with.
Yeah.
And so I went to their meetings and I learned all the things that I didn't know and needed to learn. And so I went and, found resources for that. I learned how to pitch, and I learned how to research editors and agents and publishers and what to look for and what to stay away from. And it really was just kind of like going back to school, but without the stress of, tests and all of that.
Yeah. Well, in September of 2023, we
Mhm.
got Home for the Holidays from you with
Yes.
Harlequin's special edition line. This book felt like such a big deal. I just remember, like, I was excited, all my friends were excited. So tell us about the journey, like,
Thank
to getting
you.
published with Harlequin. Like, how did we get this book?
Thank you so much. Honestly, I really don't know. Um, that was I would say that is my story that I never thought was going to go anywhere. Um, and it took a really long time. I've written all kinds of, I write contemporary romance. Some of the books that I've written are Jewish, but some of them are not. And back when I was first writing, I was reading Faye Kellerman, and she is a mystery writer, but she has a series that is a Jewish series, and it's called the Peter Decker series. And it's this non Jewish detective who investigates a murder in a like Orthodox Jewish community. And he ends up falling in love with one of the people there. And so they become a couple and are solving mysteries. And I loved the fact that the Jewish aspect was just there. Like, it just like anything else. It added flavor and color, but and yes, it was part of the story, but it was a mystery novel.
Yeah.
And I was like, if she can do that, I wonder if I can do that in my writing. So I had written some Jewish romances, and I found a small publisher to produce them. And then I was at one of the conferences that was sponsored by New Jersey romance writers. And a friend of mine had invited me to sit at her table for lunch, where there were a whole bunch of editors and agents at that table. And so I was, terrified. So, but I sat with her, and my friend is very chatty and very, not afraid of
Yeah.
anything. So she was telling this one agent that I write Jewish romance.
The
And
friend
so
we
the
all
agent
need, the one that's gonna give the nudge for you.
seriously, I need that friend. Like, I really just need somebody to push me there, and then I'll be okay. And this agent came up to me and she said, "Are you the one who writes Jewish romance?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "I'd like you to write me a Jewish romance." And that was it.
That was it.
And I was like, okay. I like, what kind? She's like, "I'm going to leave it up to you, but I'd love to see something that you write." So I was like, cool, awesome. Okay. Um, Thank you. I got her information and I started writing this story. And I wanted to create a small town similar to like Stars Hollow for the Gilmore Girls,
Mhm.
but I wanted it to be diverse and I wanted it to be basically like an ideal version of the what I imagined. And I just wanted there to be all kinds of people and religion and diversity
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
Um, I came up with this story and I was working on it and I wrote it and I wrote it and I wrote it. And I ran into this agent a couple of other times and she knew like, she saw me, she knew who I was. And she's like, "Oh, you're writing that book for me, right?" And I said, "Yes." So when I had it done, I submitted it to her. And she was lovely. She read the whole thing. She gave me lots and lots of notes about it. Um, and ultimately, she said, "I love this book. I just don't know what to do with it."
O
So I was like,
okay.
all right.
Like, I wrote this book
Thank you.
for you.
Right. I was like, all right. Like, and part of me was thinking, okay, I completely understand that. But if you asked me to write this book, I would have thought you would have, like, in the back of your mind when you weren't dealing with all your other clients, like, thought about what could I do with something like this. But okay, I took it back and I was like, well, I now have this book written, so now I can submit it to whomever. um, and I had submitted to Harlequin in the past, and for whatever reason my stories didn't line up with exactly what they wanted. So it wasn't really I wasn't really thinking Harlequin, but I found another agent who was very interested. And she read the manuscript and she said, "I really like it." She said, "I'd like to represent you and I think we can do something with this." And so she ended up submitting it to Harlequin, and my editor, Gail, read the manuscript and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this. Can we make it a series?" And I was thrilled because, I mean, Harlequin is a big name. And also, they didn't just want a Jewish book and then be done with it. Like, they wanted to do a series. And they like the title. My agent and I created that title and they kept it. And I was very proud of it because it's on the cover and it's in your face and it's right there and it doesn't have to be hidden. And at the same time, I don't know how to explain it, but like, she understood the message, which was, Jewish romance is just like any other romance. And the characters just happen to be Jewish and it provides a flavor and a texture in the background. But anybody can read it because it's a romance and it's, boy meets girl and they live happily ever after. And that's the same formula that all romances follow.
Yeah. I think
Um,
that was so
well,
special. I am a big, Hallmark fan, even though I feel like the last couple of years I have not enjoyed too much of their content, but I feel like when they do a Jewish movie during the holidays, it either is great or I feel like just kind of like they with when they do like African American romances, it's like
mhm,
these movies, sometimes it's like you have to educate people on being Jewish. And I'm like, why can't they just not? Like, it's my responsibility to learn more about, and like
right,
it shouldn't have to educate people. Like, let it just be a
correct,
romance with two people that are Jewish.
right, and honestly, honestly, I am probably the only Jewish romance writer who doesn't like Hanukkah romance. because and it's not that I don't like it. It's not that I don't like it. I'm thrilled that it's out there and I'm thrilled for the representation. But Jewish romance is not just Hanukkah. Like
Mhm.
Hanukkah is this little tiny holiday that has gotten blown up because it occurs around Christmas time. And so, we everybody makes a bigger deal because of the timing. But you can have a Jewish romance. First of all, you can have Jewish romance that doesn't have any holidays in it.
Yeah.
Just the fact that, they get married in a temple or they sit down for a Shabbat dinner or light the Shabbat candles instead of going to church on a Sunday. Or they have a mezuzah hanging on the door. So the fact that Harlequin loved this book that was not about Hanukkah, it was about other holidays, and asked for two more for the series. And yes, they did say, please make one of them Hanukkah, which, okay, fine. But it wasn't, can you make them all Hanukkah or can you
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah.
I just, I really liked the way that they, in in my experience, that they were trying for diversity. I know that they try for diversity in many other things. I don't want to compete with that because I don't feel like I don't want to take away that space from anyone. But I would like to have more of
This is needed
me
too. Yeah, this
and,
is needed.
and my books in there.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember like, what were you doing when you got the call? Do you remember?
I was going to the post office and
I love that. I love that.
my agent called me and I was like just getting out of the car to mail something. And she's like, do you have a minute? And so I sat back down in the car because, I'm like, I'm not going to talk to somebody in the post office. And she was like, so Harlequin wants it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she's like,
Let me set
and
this
they want
package
two
down
more
and freak
books.
out.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, and they want two more books. So do you think you can write them? I'm like, absolutely. And you see, this is how I get into things because I'm like, of course I can, no problem.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're recording this in February. I mean, March is a couple of days away, but this April, we're getting Matzah Ball Blues from you. So can you tell us about it?
Yes. So Matzah Ball Blues is the second book in the series. The series follows three girlfriends. And so each woman is the heroine in the book, in each book. So this one follows Caroline, who is Sarah's friend from the first book, and it takes place around Passover. And they're all basically second chance romances. Caroline had big plans for going off to college, and then her mom got sick and she needed to stay home with her mom. And the boyfriend that she had from high school went off to school and said that they would stay together, but they didn't. And so now it's several years later. Her mom unfortunately passed away, but she has worked through, it's been enough time where she has paid off the medical debts and she has kind of gotten to a place where she is now ready to experience life. And she plans on traveling because that's what she wasn't ever able to do. And she is coming back from making her amazing travel plans and runs into her old boyfriend from high school who is with a baby. And she's, stunned. He had gone off to college and did his thing. He's working for a high powered entertainment law firm, and his brother and sister-in-law had a baby and they were in a car accident, and he is now the guardian of his niece.
Mhm.
And so he is coming home to see his parents and to have them help kind of get his mind in the right place and figure out what he's supposed to do because he was never expecting to have this happen. And he sees her. And so they run into each other numerous times and they're trying to figure out if they're friends, if they can be more than that, how to work out the whole she wants to leave. He's now, got responsibilities and wants to stay. And yeah,
That sounds so good. I cannot wait. I was like, this is the next book. Like, this
it is.
is Oh
And
my
I have to say that My favorite characters in these books are usually the grandmas or like there's always some, well, in the first book there was this older grandmother who was like the typical, like Jewish grandma, like, okay, you need to eat. Everything will be solved with food. And, like trying to make sure that everyone around her is happy. And, I love creating that community and then bringing them together. So, the grandmother from the first book does make an appearance in this one as
Yes.
well, and it was just a lot of fun pulling in the characters and making them, like, be a part of each other's lives, and the interconnectedness and the close community that you have with smaller
Yeah,
towns.
yeah. Oh, I love that. That's just I think that's what makes special edition so fun is just
Mhm.
really leaning into, like, the fun intricacies of community. I don't know. It just and I love grandmas because I feel like they just hold everything together, you know?
They
So
do.
so for anyone new to your bibliography, and you kind of touched on this just now, but how would you describe the type of books you enjoy writing? Like, what's the hallmark of a Jennifer Wilk?
The hallmark of a Jennifer Wilk is, there's always a strong family connection in there. There's always, some connection of the hero and or the heroine to their family. There's often second chance romances just because I don't know, I like writing those. Those are fun. Um, it's always contemporary romance. I'd love to write other kinds, but I don't think I have you have to do so much research for historicals that I don't think I could. I love reading them, but I don't think I could do justice if I was writing them. Um, there's always joking around and laughing and like that banter going back and forth.
Mhm.
I love doing that. I love getting messages across by having the characters say certain things and joke about certain things and kind of, um, I just like them being funny. Um, and hot chemistry.
Yeah. Oh, well, knowing what you know now, what
Mhm.
would you go back and tell Jennifer at the beginning of her writing career? Like, old version of you, what would you tell her knowing what you know now?
If you can figure out a way to learn to plot, your life would be a lot easier.
So you're not a plotter.
I am not a plotter.
Okay. Yeah, I
In fact,
imagine like I'm trying my hand at writing and the thought of
mhm.
sitting down and plotting out drives me nuts. I'm like, I don't know how people do it.
I don't know how they do it because the couple of times that I've done it, the one time when I first started writing after I sold my first book, I was like, all right, so I'm a professional author. I need to write an outline. That's just what professional authors do. I can't just make it up as I go along. And I wrote an outline and I wrote the book to the outline, and it was a romance, and I left out every single piece of romance. Like there was no touching, no looking, no kissing, nothing. I got to the end of the book and I was like, I think you forgot something. So I had to go back and scrap the outline and scrap the whole book and start that again. And the other time I did it, I think I did something similar. I just like, for some reason, when I see the outline, like I can't get into the characters. So it ends up being, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And it's a disaster. So I write my outlines after I write the first draft, so I know where things are and I know how to go back to places that I want to find. And it does help me make sure that the eyes stay blue or green or brown or whatever, and they don't change in the middle. But yeah, I cannot for the life of me write to an outline. So I think that would be the one piece of advice I would give myself. And the other would really be to don't forget how much fun writing is and just make sure you're having fun.
I love that. Yeah. Keep it fun. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, technically it is work, but Have fun
It
with
is
it.
work, and there's a lot of guilt around that, at least I feel a lot of guilt, like, "Okay, I have to, like, justify what I'm doing, and I have to, make sure I'm spending all of my time doing this," but it's also fun, and it's relaxing, and I have to let myself feel that.
Yeah, you get to write something, you get to create something that brings people joy and gives people hope
Yeah,
and gives them escape. Like, it's a very important job, but, like, have fun with it at the same I mean, have fun with it. That is so
yeah.
cool. You already shared like, my next question was, are you working anything on anything? And we know you're working on 4 things right now. Can you tell us about any of them? Like, what's the details of what you're working on? Can you tell us or no?
Yeah, sure. So the third Harlequin book, I'm working. I've gotten my edits back from my editor, so I'm making the edits for that. So that's one of the things I'm doing, and that is going. That's called Deadlines, Donuts, and Dreidels, and that will
It's so
come
cute.
out. And that will come out in November-ish. I'm a little iffy on the whole deadline thing because again, there's a lot of things coming. Um, I am also Harlequin also asked me to contribute to one of their multi-author series.
Oh my
They have
gosh. You're doing a
Yeah,
continuity?
I am. I am doing a continuity series. I am working on their Fortunes of Texas continuity, which I kind of made me laugh because the first one that they gave me was in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And I was like, and they wanted it to be Jewish. And I was like, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
I live in Texas. I get it. I get it.
It's I meant nothing by it, but this was like the middle of rural Texas. It like hours away from any kind of city, and I'm like, I just don't see any Jews there.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how I'm supposed to do this, but with the continuity series, they do give me a synopsis, and they did create a character who was not from there, who was coming in. So
Okay, okay.
so it worked okay. So actually they had me do 2 books for that. So, I'm waiting on the edits for one, but I am currently writing the second one. So I'm writing the first draft of that. Then I got my rights back for a 3-book Jewish contemporary series that I am self-publishing now. So I am getting that formatted and ready to be released in May, June, and July of this year. Um, and then I'm trying to think what was the I don't rem what was the 4th thing that I had? Um, oh, and then I am working on a manuscript that is a Cyrano de Bergerac retelling
Okay.
that I am giving to my agent for submission. So I'm finalizing that. It's kind of a Cyrano meets dating apps, and I'm going to see what happens with that.
Well, I'm so excited for everything you have in the works,
Thank
and
you.
I cannot wait. Where can everyone keep up with you online?
I love talking to people. I love, keeping up with people online. So I have a website where you can always find my information. It is jenniferwilk.com. I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram. I am on TikTok. I make a huge fool of myself there.
We all do.
Um,
We all do.
I will say one of the big benefits of joining TikTok was the embarrassment my children felt. Like it was good.
Yeah.
Good. A little embarrassment is healthy, no problem. Um, so yeah, I am not on Twitter, but I am on Facebook and Instagram, and my books are on Goodreads. My books are on, electronic retailers and bookstores, and yeah,
Well, you have to come back. Will you come back?
I would love to come
Okay, I was
back.
gonna say you have a lot. Clearly, you have books coming out, so you have more books coming out. We have to talk about them. So, thank you so much for this. I will have all the links to where people can keep up with you down below, and I cannot wait to catch up with you again. I am so excited for everything you have coming out. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. This was incredible. So, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It was such a pleasure to be here. I had such a good time talking to you. I would love to come back. And thanks for making this so easy.